We're going to start with the authentic self because it's the most important self of all. Your authentic self is the self where if I said to you, if there were no negative consequences for your actions, for your behaviors, this is how you would show up. And in particular, this is how you would show up across what I call the 7 behavioral dimensions. And so everyone, those 7 behavioral dimensions, they're buckets of behavior in which we make decisions around how to behave all day long, both consciously and unconsciously. And so if there were no negative consequences for your actions, this is how you would dress, like literally how you would show up. This is how you would speak. And when I say speak, your voice, the words you use, your accent. Here's where you would say yes, no. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly of who we are. But because it's the truest reflection of our core self, it feels the best to do. Okay? So as your authentic self, 2 questions. First of all, to what extent do you feel safe right now to show up as your authentic self across these 7 behavioral dimensions as much as possible? How much is that happening for you? And then the second question for the leaders in the room, through the ways in which you are managing and leading, how are you creating room for people to bring their authentic selves to work? Okay? So that's the authentic self. Does it resonate with you? Make some noise. Oh gosh, your authentic self, does it resonate? Because everyone, this is the most important self. You got to root and anchor to this after today. We'll talk more about that. Okay, now let's flip to the other side of the continuum to what I call the performing self. We have been talking a lot about performing today. And so when I say the performing self, I don't mean like high performance. I mean like life is literally a stage. And we are actors on the stage, putting out a curated persona of who we are. And so our performing self, we feel pressure to change our behaviors, to mask aspects of our identity. And what that looks like is us literally sanitizing and adjusting how we speak. And so we come into work and we have like one accent at work, and then we have an entirely different way of speaking in the evenings. And like we change the words that we use so that we can signal, I am speaking the King's English. I used to say Queen's. King's English. And like listen to how perfect my diction is. And then it's afterwards, it's like in the evenings, it's like slang. And then, or for example, we fret about what to wear and how to dress. As women, we don't talk about family care responsibilities. We sanitize. Why? In fear of attracting forms of gender bias. We don't talk about our experiences with mental health challenges in the workplace in fear of attracting bias. We don't talk about, as members of the LGBTQ communities, well, I'm cisgender, hetero, so people from the LGBTQ communities will tell me, like, I'm gay, people know I'm out, like I'm out at work, although the recent data just came out, shocking, about how, I think the stat was like only 30% of people are actually out in the office, out at work right now, to everyone. It's amazing, and it being Pride Month in particular. So it'll be like, people know I'm gay, but I don't actually talk about my evenings and weekends. Why? I'm in fear of attracting biases. And as people of color, I was telling Vancouver yesterday, and my South Asians in the house, you love this. It's like, for us, what can performing look like? It'll be like, oh, so how was your weekend? What did you do? Oh, I just had a few people over for dinner. And what we really did is we had 150 of our friends over, and for the backyard of the basement party, and then we made goat curry, but we made it outside in the backyard on camping stoves to prevent the curtains from stinking like curry. That's actually what we do. Don't we do that? Oh, we do that. I love it. And again, Instagram stories, that's where it's all at. Now, the final self that I want to talk to you about is the self that we rarely talk about, but is so important because it's the adapted self. Because when we dig into our adapted self, what we realize is, wow, I have more choice and control over how I behave than I thought I did. That's called agency. I'm actually living quite authentically. I didn't realize this. And then thirdly, there's room for me to come more over to my authentic self, or the adapted self is a really safe place for us to stay if we don't want to bring our authentic self to bear across the dimensions. And in fact, for those of you who are really junior in the room, the adapted self is a place where a lot of junior people in organizations spend a lot of time, and that's fine. So your adapted self is the self that says, okay, Ritu, I hear you, I'm going to push out of performing as much as I can today, but I look over at my authentic self, and I can't be authentic 100% of the time, and you should know that's right. No one can be authentic 100% of the time. And the reason for that is, as human beings, we're animals, we're deeply communal, we live in societies, and we need mechanisms to keep us regulated and have social control. And so no one can be authentic 100% of the time, and especially because, well, we want to keep our job, we want our bosses to like us, we want to keep our children, we want to keep our spouses, we don't want to go to jail. And so we're all adjusting and adapting all day long. So your adapted self is the self that willingly, happily chooses to adjust your behaviors to meet your needs and the needs of others. It's a choice, it's willing, it feels good to do. Still a manifestation of your authenticity, and this is why it's in the zone of empowerment. And so in looking at the behavioral dimensions, you can start already thinking about, like, and so in which of these dimensions am I adapting my behavior? Is there room for me to push more over to being more of my authentic self? In the buckets where dimensions where I'm performing, how can I push more into being adaptive?